Oh guys, I gotta show you this. Look at all these kitties. I don't know why they're getting so... Anyway, got too many of them. That's alright. Beautiful morning. Even above the house. Look at that. Well, what I wanted to talk to you about in this walk is Klipsch. The brand, public perception, and all that, but well, really, I'm going to talk about my speaker that I built 40 years ago, almost 40 years ago. I had to wait until that car passed, going by there like crazy. Anyway, it's been so crazy hot here in the house. It's like you're cooped up in the winter with nothing to do. Well, so you kind of fall back on your hobbies, do some stuff that you wish you would have done, you know, some other time. Oh, I just can't get over the sky. Flip this camera around and let you see. Yeah, just like, it's not bad temperature wise. One of our cooler mornings. Yeah, he actually saw me. You guys go so fast. Tire whiny truck. I see it. I don't know if the camera's picking it up. Beautiful pinks up there. I just want to enjoy it. Maybe I won't talk so much. Yeah, how can you not love that sunrise? The sun was just popping up right over here. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. It'll expose from my face instead of the sky there, but oh, just beautiful. So when you're inside, when it's so hot outside, you're inside a lot. You start scrolling through Facebook, and here I got a deal from a forum called Klipsch Tech, and they were talking about sealing the K horn against the corner to increase the bass or the low bass output. And I got on there, and I had tried that experiment with my homemade ones years ago. Not really sealing to the corner, but sealing with a top board and running some frequency response curves, at least the way I was able to back, say, 30 years ago. And it didn't make any difference that I could tell. And here these guys were claiming it makes a difference. They gave some stories. Well, I was able to come up with some stories where Paul Klipsch would walk into a showroom and say, oh, the bass doesn't sound right. And he would make the one of the workers there run down to the hardware store, come up with some rubber to seal that tailboard on the Klipsch Khorn to the corner of the room. And then, of course, he would say, oh, it sounds right now. But I really had my doubts. But I told these guys, well, let's just prove it. Set up a microphone. Let's record some frequency response there. And pull with it sealed, and pull the speaker back 1 inch. Yeah, I don't know. Then was talking about the horn size, the mouth size, the taper rate of the horn. And I'd mentioned that with my sons. We had built some horn-loaded subwoofers, and just out of common car speaker. I know Roy gets on there and laughs. Roy's the head chief audio engineer there at Klipsch. And he laughed at my comment for whatever reason. And so I get on there and say, hey, Roy, if you're going to put a laughing emoji, at least you could do is tell me what in my post was wrong or made you laugh. And of course he never did. And finally, through some other posts in that group, there were some people that were trying to get rid of me. And they finally just banned me on that group. But here's the interesting thing. Been watching some YouTube videos on Paul Klipsch. He's known to carry a BS button around, even to church. And what I thought was actually more interesting was this video from late 80s. A guy from Lafayette, Louisiana, he's a dentist down there, comes up to Hope, Arkansas, and makes a video, not a very good quality video, in the late 80s, early 90s of the factory there, and actually gets an interview with Paul Klipsch. Thought, well, that's kind of interesting. And but they were in the parking lot. They saw Paul drive in with his car. Paul had a 300 series Mercedes, nothing special, and had an old tachometer there, looked like on the dash. It just looked like something we would do back in the day, right? But on his license plate, on his personalized license plate, he had gadfly. And this dentist asked Paul about it, and he had some story about how he liked the name. Someone called him that once or something, and he liked the name, so he just stuck that on his license plate. Well, what's a gadfly? I guess it's not really a term we use around here, If you look it up, a gadfly is an insect that bothers livestock. So that's a technical term. And what it really means in the larger context is someone who bucks authority, someone who questions authority. And that's kind of what I felt I was doing in that forum. But the irony is lost on those Klipsch and ex-Klipsch employees, ex-employees. The one was moderating the group there. He hadn't worked there for 20 years, but he hadn't worked there for 3 years. Since it's a Klipsch tech, maybe I didn't have any business being on there, but there's all kinds of Klipsch Facebook groups, and so I still frequent those, but can't tell what's going on in that other one. They don't want any input from an old Kansas farm boy that built his own, and realistically is never going to own a Klipsch product, because I'm not going to spend that kind of money. Not sure what those K-horns are going for. It's probably $20,000, if not more, for a pair of them. I was able to buy or build something similar, probably for $400 back in the mid-'80s. 3 sheets of plywood and the speakers and a table saw, and is able to build it. But it's still playing with it today, and I'm going to be doing modifications to it. Got a measuring mic coming, give me a little more accurate results, although I don't think it's going to change from what I've been using. Now you can tell on my YouTube channel I have a playlist called Audiophile Equipment Reviews, and in there I do some modifications to my crossover, and if I don't have a really good video explaining how that speaker works, and I need to do that, and I may do that soon here, so you know where I'm coming from if you're not familiar with that Klipsch horn. We just call it the K-horn. But I've been really pleased with it lately. Last night I was running that without any equalization and just added the sub at a fairly low level to fill in the bottom octave, and it just worked really beautiful for most music. But Klipsch, on their latest model, they have the option to make an active crossover, which means they have an electronic device that'll separate the woofer frequencies from the mid-range from the tweeter. And so you have to have 3 separate amplifiers on each channel, or like 3 stereo amplifiers. And then they use, they call it DSP, which is digital signal processing, to give it the crossover. But when they do that, they can also manipulate the frequency response. And they're advertised from Klipsch, and all these companies are doing it. They're always saying how good their frequency response is. and they always fudge the numbers. There's that sumac, beautiful in the morning sun. But they all fudge the numbers. They say that the K horn goes down to like 34 cycles or something, and it's a 40 hertz horn. Neither one is really technically true. It's more like a 47 hertz horn, and the frequency response drops like a rock past 40. So at 30 cycles, you're 10 decibels down from 40. And you can see in the graphs, I've been posting some of those graphs in the Klipsch Khorn's Facebook group, and will continue to do so since mine is a Klipsch Khorn. And you can see what my frequency response is. Now mine's not Klipsch Khorn to the last detail, running a little different speaker, fairly close in specs to the Klipsch speaker, but just a little different. And my chamber behind my woofer is a little different size. It's a little smaller. It doesn't open up to other chambers like the K horn does, since mine's kind of a smaller version. It doesn't extend as wide. Internally, the horn is the same. It's just that there's no cavities that they can open up to the woofer section. But if you put that in a modeling computer design, it may not actually help with the real low frequencies. Smaller chamber may actually boost it in the 50 cycle range. Oh, there's a coon. Oh, I don't know if you saw that. Coon came onto the road. Well, I made a mistake. I should have checked what setting I was using when I started recording here. What happened was, my last recording I made yesterday was a slow motion where I stomped my feet on the pavement to kick the dirt out from the walk. And I had forgot, when I do that, it resets what size and shutter speed I'm running. And I was wanted to do 4K 30 here. Instead, it kicked it down to just HD, but it's at 60 frames per second. So that's what I'll make my final video at. Well, what I'll do in the editor, I'll kick it up to 4K. Should probably look just fine. I just can't zoom in on anything. So much nicer when there's a cloud cover on these hot days. I should mention, on my speakers years ago, I used to have a powerful, like a Yamaha 200 watt per channel heavy amp, and it just didn't need that kind of power. But used to run it with a 10 band EQ, and I would punch in 12 decibels of boost at 30 cycles, and then reduce the 125 hertz about 4 decibels. And I like that sound. And I've run that I have that EQ in my Yamaha receiver that I'm using now, except I can't go as extreme. I can only boost it 6 decibels at 30. But I found out last night if I punch in the second frequency I want to boost, do the first one at 30, next one I can do at 40 and boost it. It actually doubles up in that area. But I can't say it in the room I'm running that it really improved it any. I was just better off forgetting the EQ and just adding the sub and live with it. The sound was dynamic and lively. And that little bump in the, say, the 100 to 200 cycle range, you can see on my graph there, it actually gives it kind of a live sound. Maybe that's where people get the Klipsch sound. And they've done crossover networks in the speaker to try and reduce that in the later versions, say the ones built from 15 years ago and newer. They call it a notch filter built in. Kind of a complicated filter. Takes an extra couple capacitors, coils, and a resistor or two. And a lot of experimentation, I'm sure. I was talking to one guy, actually, I was at work in the parking lot, and I was looking at something he had written or something. I don't remember his name. He used to work for Speaker Lab, and their latest version had a notch filter with a variable bass contour control, which is really unique. And so he was saying something, somehow, I think I accidentally called him, and he answered. I think I was just looking up something about him or something, and it had a phone number there, and I must have hit the button. So I called him and talked to him about 5 or 10 minutes. He said, yeah, you can do it passively like that, but you're probably better off just doing it within a DSP program, digital signal process program, and just do it that way these days. And I think he's probably right. Don't mess with all that stuff in the signal going to the speaker. Do it before the amplifier. And that's what Klipsch is doing now with their highest end models. They all have a DSP setup with the frequency response curves they want to put in there. And I've heard that the big kahuna, the Jubilee, has 20 decibels of boost at low frequencies. And I don't know if that's accurate. See, we're getting into the old Bose 901 setup from the late 60s, where they had 9 little speakers in a small enclosure, and to get good bass and highs, they would boost the bass like crazy and the highs like crazy. But that was just, I thought that was absolutely terrible. And here, 50 years later, we're doing the same thing with $30,000 speakers. These white flowers called snow on the mountain. Saw a YouTube video last night from 23 where Roy was demonstrating, and it must have been at one of these audio shows, a setup in a room, had 2 K-horns, and they weren't even positioned in the corners well at all. But in this case, it really didn't matter. The because he was showing off some horn subwoofers, and they were supposedly going to be 4 in the model lineup and integrate with the Heritage speaker lineup. But I don't know whatever became of those. And Roy has been involved or designed, I don't know, with big horn subwoofers for the cinema use in big theaters. That's probably where these designs came from. But he was talking having a 12-inch speaker. I'm guessing the way he described the efficiency is only in the 91, 92 decibel per watt range. And he'd have a big amplifier with it. But probably be a long excursion subwoofer in a ported horn enclosure like they're doing with the new La Scala. Well, I thought that was interesting. So there's videos out there of weird things that never came about that they talked about. And these speakers weren't finished. They look like prototypes. Kansas flower, the sunflower. It's a state flower. And we got the train coming in. You know, last night I was here listening to a Christopher Cross song called Sailor, or Sailing, I guess it is. And I always thought in the song he was saying, Kansas can do miracles. Well, I'm thinking, listening to this song, that can't be right. I listened and listened. Well, he's saying canvas, like in canvas material that would be on a cell. But when he was singing that song, I thought he said, Kansas can do miracles. Oh, look at that. Beautiful cloud formations to the west here. Looks like a little rain there on the horizon. I should get back in time before I get hit with that. So the train doesn't run me over. Till the train's west here, around the corner from Walton, coming down the stretch into Peabody. I wondered where all the sunflowers were a little earlier, a couple weeks ago. They're coming out now. I haven't talked to him, but you know, there's an artist here, local artist, Philip. He does all the wonderful cloudscape pictures. But he just loves looking at clouds and mornings like this. Kansas can do miracles. If I don't get run over by the traffic.